My name is Liam Carter. I'm 32, and I work as a marketing manager at a luxury real estate firm. Normally, my evenings are quiet, just me, a glass of whiskey, and some background music. But tonight felt different. There was a heaviness in the air, like something had shifted, and I couldn't shake it. I was scrolling through my phone on the couch when Samantha, my fiancée, walked in from the kitchen. She smiled, that slow, knowing smile that usually made my heart skip a beat. But tonight, it felt off. She kissed me on the cheek, but her eyes lingered somewhere else. Somewhere I couldn't see. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "Dinner was good." "Oh, it was fine," she replied, her tone light, but her gaze flickered toward the hallway. I followed her eyes and froze. My father, Gregory Carter, 57 tall and imposing even at this age, was standing there pretending to read a magazine. His presence always had this authority, this magnetic pull that I'd never questioned before. But tonight, there was something in his eyes when they met Samantha's, a familiarity that made my stomach twist. I laughed nervously. "You too." Samantha shook her head quickly, but the flash of panic in her expression was subtle, almost too subtle. My father chuckled, a low, knowing chuckle, and returned to his magazine. That laugh, it didn't feel innocent. Not tonight. I brushed it off, forcing myself to focus on my work emails. But a seed had been planted, and it was growing fast. I didn't know it yet, but tonight would shatter everything I thought I knew about my life, my fiancé, and my father. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Every time I looked up from my laptop, I caught Samantha and my father exchanging subtle smiles, quick glances that seemed almost rehearsed. At first, I tried to dismiss it. Maybe it was my imagination, but there was a weight in the air, thick and heavy, like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. I tried to distract myself with work, scrolling through marketing reports and emails, but my eyes kept darting toward them. There was a tension in the way Samantha laughed, a little too soft, almost intimate, and the way my father's hand would rest casually near hers, though casual, felt wrong. Too deliberate, too familiar. My stomach twisted every time their eyes met. I decided to test it, to see if my suspicions were real. "Greg," I said casually, forcing a smile, "did you enjoy your wine with dinner?" He looked up from his chair, smiling warmly, his deep voice smooth. "It was delightful, Liam, thank you." But my gaze caught the fleeting moment his eyes lingered on Samantha. That almost imperceptible spark of something I couldn't name. My chest tightened. That simple glance, so brief, carried a weight that made my stomach churn. Later, I went to the kitchen for water, trying to calm my racing mind. That's when I noticed them in the corner, huddled close, speaking in whispers I couldn't catch. Samantha leaned slightly toward him, her fingers brushing against his arm as she laughed softly. My father's posture was relaxed, too relaxed, his eyes locked on her face with a warmth that made my blood run cold. The way they moved around each other, it wasn't normal father-daughter-in-law interaction, not in a way my mind could accept. I froze, unsure if I should confront them or retreat. Every instinct screamed that I was witnessing something forbidden, yet a small, stubborn part of me hoped I was overreacting. But the feeling in my gut was relentless, gnawing at me with every passing second. By 10:30 p.m., I was pacing my apartment, my heart hammering. The laughter from the living room echoed like a sinister soundtrack, each note sharp and cutting through the uneasy calm. Every casual touch, every shared glance, every secretive whisper felt like evidence I wasn't supposed to see, but I couldn't look away. The seed of doubt had grown into a wildfire, consuming my thoughts. I leaned against the wall, trying to steady my breath, but the unease was suffocating. Something dark was unfolding in front of me, a betrayal that felt inevitable. And deep down, a terrifying thought began to take shape. I might not just be witnessing temptation. I might be witnessing the beginning of a betrayal that could destroy everything I loved. I couldn't stand it any longer. The uneasy tension had become unbearable, gnawing at my chest like a living thing. My mind raced with questions I didn't want to ask, questions I feared the answers to. I told myself I was just being paranoid, that maybe I was reading too much into innocent behavior. But the knot in my stomach refused to loosen. Something was happening, and I needed to know the truth. I crept down the hallway toward the living room, careful to keep my footsteps quiet. The soft hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the wall clock were the only sounds that accompanied me. But each second stretched unbearably long. When I peeked around the corner, my blood ran cold. There they were, Samantha and my father Gregory, standing close together, whispering with their faces inches apart. Samantha's hand was resting lightly on his arm. Not a casual touch, but deliberate, intimate, the kind of touch that shouldn't exist between a fiancée and her future father-in-law. Gregory leaned closer, and I could see the faint smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. Samantha laughed softly, a sound that used to feel comforting to me, but now it sliced through me like a knife. The way they looked at each other, my heart sank, my chest tightened. This was no ordinary conversation. This was something dangerous, forbidden. I stepped back instinctively, my hands trembling. My mind screamed at me to stop, to run, but I couldn't. I needed to see more, and that's when it happened. Gregory brushed a strand of hair from Samantha's face, his fingers lingering for a second too long. Samantha leaned into the touch, her lips curling into a sly, secretive smile. My vision blurred with anger, disbelief, and betrayal. I wanted to shout, to confront them, to make them stop, but my body felt frozen. Trapped by the shock of what I was witnessing. "You really shouldn't be sneaking around like this," Gregory whispered, his voice low, almost seductive. Samantha's laugh was soft, conspiratorial. "I know, but it's thrilling, isn't it?" Thrilling. The word echoed in my ears like a slap to the face. My fiancé, my father. What the hell was happening? My hands clenched into fists. My heart pounded so violently I thought it might burst. I didn't just feel betrayed, I felt blindsided, humiliated, and powerless all at once. Every memory of love, trust, and family seemed to crumble in an instant. The couple didn't notice me. They were lost in their own secret world. But I saw everything. Every glance, every touch, every whispered word. The room felt smaller, tighter, suffocating. I backed away slowly, trying to contain the storm of rage and sorrow building inside me. The quiet that followed was almost unbearable. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, mingling with the faint laughter that still hung in the living room like smoke. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront them now, in a rage, and let all hell break loose? Or should I wait, plan, and let the full weight of their betrayal sink in before I acted? The choice wasn't easy, but one thing became painfully clear. Nothing would ever be the same. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. They had crossed a line, shattered my trust, and toyed with something sacred. And when the time came, they would pay not just for the betrayal I had witnessed, but for the destruction they had tried to hide. I couldn't sleep, not a single minute. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it again. The way Samantha leaned into my father, the soft laugh, the lingering touch. My chest burned with a mixture of fury, heartbreak, and disbelief. The betrayal wasn't just shock, and it was toxic, like a poison seeping into the foundations of my life. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor, my mind racing in 1,000 directions at once. Questions tore through me. How long had this been happening? Was it just tonight? Was there something more? Sinister, lurking behind the smiles and casual conversations I had trusted for years. My father, the man who had always been a figure of authority and respect, now felt like a stranger. And Samantha, the woman I had planned to marry, the woman I had loved, had become an enemy I didn't even recognize. Anger began to take hold, sharp and raw. My hands shook as I clenched them into fists. I could feel the heat rising in my body, a primal urge to confront them immediately, to scream, to make them feel the pain they had inflicted on me. But deep down, a cooler voice whispered, "Patience. Wait. Watch. Plan." There was power in control. In letting them underestimate me, in letting them think they had gotten away with it, I rose from the bed and walked to the window. Looking out over the city skyline, the lights flickering like distant stars, the quiet night offered no comfort, only reflection. I thought about every detail from the evening, the glances, the whispers, the stolen smiles, and I realized just how many small signs I had ignored. How foolish I had been to trust so blindly. Sitting back down at my desk, I opened my laptop, not to work, but to start documenting everything. Every moment, every interaction, every suspicious behavior I could remember. This was no longer about shock or confusion. This was about evidence. I needed to know the full extent of their betrayal. I needed to understand their motives, to see the cracks in their secret world. Hours passed. I replayed conversations in my mind, dissected every word and gesture. I imagined confrontations, scenarios, outcomes. Sometimes I imagined confronting them openly, yelling, exposing their shame in front of everyone. Other times, I imagined the slow, cold path of revenge, letting them stew in their guilt before striking. The latter seemed far more satisfying, more powerful. By 3 a.m., my plan began to take shape, not fully formed, but clear enough to guide me. I would watch. I would wait. I would gather every piece of proof, every fragment of their deceit, and when the time was right, I would strike not in anger, but in calculated, precise vengeance. My chest still ached, but a new feeling had begun to replace some of the raw pain. Determination. I wouldn't be a victim in this story. I wouldn't let them destroy me or my life. They had underestimated me, thought my loyalty and love made me weak. They were wrong. Tomorrow, I decided, I would start watching more closely. Every gesture, every glance, every whispered word would be noted. They might think the night had passed quietly, that I had slept peacefully. But in reality, a storm had already begun brewing inside me, a storm that would not end until justice. My justice was served. I finally lay down, exhaustion pulling at my body, but sleep came fitfully, haunted by visions of their betrayal and the cold, sharp clarity of revenge forming in my mind. One thing was certain, nothing would ever be the same, and when the reckoning came, it would leave no piece of their deceit untouched. The entire day felt surreal, heavy, like walking through a fog I couldn't escape. I had spent every waking hour since last night replaying what I had seen, meticulously planning the confrontation that would finally expose the truth. My mind was a storm of emotions, anger, disbelief, hurt, and a growing cold determination. I waited until Samantha and my father were in the living room, chatting as if nothing had happened. Their laughter, so casual, so intimate, made my blood boil. I could feel the heat rising in my chest as I stepped into the room. My hands were steady now, but my eyes burned with an intensity they couldn't ignore. I said calmly, my voice low but cutting through the air like a blade. Samantha's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, just enough for me to see the panic that had been hiding behind her confident facade. Gregory's brow furrowed slightly, though his posture remained deceptively relaxed. "Sure, Liam," Samantha said, her tone careful, testing me. "What's wrong? What's wrong?" I echoed, taking a slow step forward. "Do you even realize what I've seen?" My voice was steady, but the fury behind it was palpable. "Do you understand what this looks like?" Samantha's eyes widened, but she tried to recover quickly. "I don't know what you mean," Gregory finally spoke, his deep voice calm, but with a sharp edge. "Liam, you're overreacting. It's nothing." I laughed bitterly, my hands tightening into fists at my sides. "You think sneaking around, whispering, laughing in secret, touching, nothing. I saw everything. Last night, every detail." The room went silent for a heartbeat, then another. Samantha's mouth opened and closed like she was searching for words. Gregory's jaw tightened, but his usual authority seemed weaker now, cracked by the undeniable truth that I had uncovered. "You don't understand," Samantha began, her voice trembling slightly. "It's complicated." I shook my head slowly, anger coiling inside me like a living thing. "No, it's simple. You betrayed me. You betrayed my trust. You betrayed our family." I could feel the tears pricking at the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. This wasn't about crying. It was about justice. Gregory finally stood, towering over me, trying to regain control. "Liam, calm down. Don't." I cut him off sharply. "Don't try to calm me. Don't try to justify this. There is no excuse." I took a slow, deliberate step closer, forcing them both to feel the weight of my fury. "I trusted you both. I invited you into my life. And what did I get? Lies. Secrets. Flirting. Betrayal." Samantha swallowed hard, her confident facade crumbling. "Liam, please." "No," I said, my voice icy now. "You will listen. You will understand what it feels like to be betrayed by the people you trust most, and you will know that I am not powerless. You've underestimated me for the last time." I reached for the drawer in the living room table and pulled out my phone. I had recorded them, Just a few moments of their whispers and glances, enough to make the truth undeniable. I played the video. Their faces changed, instantly shock. Fear, I said, letting the silence stretch, suffocating, heavy. You thought you could hide this. That I wouldn't notice. That I would just forgive. But I did notice. I always notice. Samantha tried to speak again, but the words caught in her throat. Gregory's hands trembled slightly as he raised them in a feeble gesture of defense. Do you feel the weight of your choices? I whispered, leaning closer, letting the cold edge of my voice cut through them. Because this isn't just about exposure. This isn't just about shame. It's about consequences. Every single choice you've made to deceive me will have its price. For a long moment, the room was silent, except for the ticking clock and the faint hum of the city outside. I could see the panic in their eyes, the realization that I had outmaneuvered them. They had believed they were untouchable, that their betrayal would remain hidden. They understood they were utterly powerless against the storm I had become. I stepped back slowly, letting the weight of my presence sink in. You've played with fire, I said softly, and now you're burned. That night, as they sat frozen and silent, I didn't strike physically. I didn't need to. The true confrontation wasn't in fists or yelling, it was in dominance, in control, in letting them feel the full magnitude of their betrayal reflected back at them. I had already won the first battle. The reckoning, the revenge. That would come. The hours passed slowly, almost mockingly. Samantha and my father sat across from me in the living room, frozen and silent, their faces etched with a mix of fear, guilt, and disbelief. I let them stew in it, letting every second stretch longer, suffocating them with the weight of their actions. But the night was far from over. I had a plan, carefully laid, and it was time to execute the final act of my reckoning. I stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city lights. You thought you could play me, I said softly, turning back to face them. That you could lie, hide, and manipulate. But you forgot one thing. I see everything. I notice everything. And I never forgive easily, Samantha whimpered, a soft, desperate sound, but Gregory tried to mask his fear with his usual arrogance. Liam, this is ridiculous. You're overreacting. Overreacting, I cut him off sharply, my voice sharp as glass. You think betraying the person who trusted you most is nothing? You think stealing what is sacred between us is trivial? You're wrong, dead wrong. I pulled out my phone again, but this time it wasn't just recordings. I had collected years of evidence, without them realizing it, texts, photos, subtle videos, everything they had tried to hide. Each one I displayed, one by one, and the room became a gallery of their deceit. Samantha's face turned pale, her lips trembling, while Gregory's hand shook as he reached to block the screen. You see this? I asked, my voice calm but lethal. This isn't just last night. This is everything you've been hiding. Every little whisper, every look, every plan to manipulate me in my life. And now it all ends. They tried to speak to justify themselves, but their words fell flat. I had stripped away the illusions, the false bravado, leaving only raw truth, and it was unbearable for them. Then I revealed the twist they never saw coming. I leaned forward, voice low and dangerous. Do you remember last month, the night of the gala? I asked. Both of them froze. You thought I didn't notice when you met in secret after the party, plotting behind my back, but I did. I recorded it. Every word, every whisper, every laugh. You think you controlled the situation, but in reality, you were playing into my hands. Samantha gasped, her hand covering her mouth. Gregory's jaw dropped, his face pale with shock. They hadn't realized that their secret moments, the ones they thought I would never know about, had been meticulously documented. Every step they had taken toward betrayal had been laying the path for their own exposure. I walked closer, the tension in the room thick as molasses. You see, the real twist, I said, my eyes locking onto theirs, is that this isn't just about catching you in the act. This is about control. You thought you were untouchable. You thought I was weak. You thought I loved blindly. But tonight, you learned the truth. I pressed a button on my laptop. Screens across the room flickered to life, displaying every private moment, every secret conversation, every instance of betrayal. Samantha's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. Gregory's confident demeanor evaporated entirely, replaced by raw, panicked fear. "You've underestimated me," I whispered, letting the words hang like a knife. "And now, you will pay not with anger, not with confrontation, but with the slow, consuming reality of your shame. Every lie, every hidden smile, every deceitful touch. It is yours to bear, forever." For hours we sat like that. They could not move, could not speak. They were prisoners of the truth I had revealed, trapped in a world they created but could no longer control. And as I watched them, a cold satisfaction settled over me. This was more than revenge, it was absolute, final, unavoidable justice. Then came the ultimate twist, one I had kept to myself until this very moment. "There's one more thing," I said quietly. They looked at me, confusion and fear mixing on their faces. This entire situation wasn't just about you. It was about me finding out who I really am, about seeing the people I trust